Hello, Mishpacha, it's Courtney, America's Jewish Mother, and I am back with a Friday Reads video. If you are following my channel or are new to my channel, you know that I typically put out 2 videos a week, but as I am a teacher by profession and I have been trapped under a revolving door of grading papers that just don't seem to ever end for weeks now, I just could not get it together to do another video this week, so sorry about that. I will resume normal schedule next week. So I finished 2 books this week, and I'm currently reading 3 books, so let's get into it. The first book I finished this week was, and I don't have this here in physical form because I listened to it on audiobook, was the Regatta Mystery and Other Stories by Agatha Christie. This was a complete mood read. I was just in the mood for cozy mystery-ish things, so I decided I would read this, or listen to it rather. So this, like I said, I listened to this on audiobook. It had 9 stories in it. 2 of them featured Parker Pyne, who is apparently one of Christie's detective characters. I was not familiar with him before I listened to this audiobook. One of them featured Miss Marple, and 5 of them featured Hercule Poirot, and one of them didn't feature any of those characters. So I ended up giving this collection 3.25 stars. I thought it was interesting enough while I was listening to it, but to be honest, I finished this on Saturday or Sunday, and it's now Friday, and I barely remember any of the stories at this point. So I think when you're writing a mystery short story, it's just harder for it to pack the same sort of punch that an extended cozy mystery story in a novel would probably pack. Also, and I said this in my last Friday Reads video, I suspected that I was not liking Hercule Poirot as a character, and that continued to be the case. I just sort of found him to be obnoxious and arrogant, and I don't like those things. So I did not enjoy the stories that featured him as much as I, enjoyed the stories with Parker Pyne and Miss Marple. Also, in case you decide to listen to this on audiobook, I will say that the woman who narrates Miss Marple's story in this collection, I think her name is Joan Hickson, slurs her S's together, and it made parts of the story difficult to understand because it almost sounded like when you're talking to an old person who has dentures that keep sort of slipping. It sounded like that. And also the last story in the collection, which I don't even remember the title of it right now, but it was the last one in the collection. It was an Hercule Poirot story. The person who narrated that did a very good job and was very sort of good at differentiating between all of the various characters and voices, and was very exuberant in their narration. So yeah, like I said, I gave that 3.25 stars. It was entertaining enough, but ultimately kind of forgettable. The second book I finished this week was my buddy read of Love in the Time of Cholera by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. I have been buddy reading this with Greg of Supposedly Fun. I actually yesterday filmed a whole separate video with my review of this book. So I'm going to post that after Greg and I do our final buddy read check-in for the book. But yeah, I have very complicated mixed feelings about this book, and for that reason I ended up giving it 3 stars. So if you want to hear more about that, also with spoilers, you can watch that video when it goes up, which will probably be on Sunday or Monday. So those were the 2 books I finished this week. So on to my currently reading. So I am still doing my buddy read with Lindsay of Lindsay's Book Life of Louise Erdrich's The Plague of Doves. I am slightly under 200 pages into this, and again, it continues to be very confusing to both Lindsay and myself. There are just a ton of characters. You get different perspectives throughout the book, and everything really hasn't kind of come together yet, and I assume it's all going to come together at some point, but it is sort of frustrating in the process, especially the sections where you have a ton of little vignettes that are all strung together. I'm not sure what the purpose of that is. I did like the last 2 sections of this that I've read, which was a section from Marn and a very short section from Evelina, because those at least had cohesive storylines that were clearly connected in some way. But yeah, so I hope the rest of the book continues to do that, because I don't want to finish this book and have no idea what the point of any of it was. So this continues to be confusing, but also entertaining, so I will say that for it. But I will have more thoughts once Lindsay and I actually finish this, which I don't know that we'll finish this next week. Probably the week after next, I'm thinking. So yeah. I also just recently started reading Ibram X. Kendi's How to Be an Anti-Racist, or rather, I started listening to it on audiobook. Because apparently I cannot stick to my TBR this month, and I'm just all about mood reading right now. But yeah, mainly this has been on my TBR for a while, and I saw that it was available on audiobook from one of the libraries I have access to, and I thought, you know what, I should just go ahead and get this and listen to it. So the audiobook has 11 parts. It's narrated by Kendi himself, and I've listened to 2 parts, which is about an hour and 45 minutes, and the whole thing is, I think, just under 11 hours. So there are some things I like about this so far, and some things that I don't like about it. I actually really like that Kendi explains his definitions of things like anti-racist and racist, and assimilationist and segregationist, etc., etc. Because I think often, because I work in academia, I feel like oftentimes when you read an academic article, or you see something that's part of an ongoing conversation in academia about a subject, people just assume that you're working with the same operational definition of a term that they are, like racism or pragmatism, or something like that, and they're not. So I think it's useful that Kendi defines his terminology up front. I also like that he ties racism and anti-racism to action. That very much appeals to the pragmatist in me, who wants to know what are the practical consequences of doing this or not doing this, or believing this or not believing this. And I also like that he gives those definitions some fluidity, that you can do something that is racist, or by not doing something, you can also do something that's racist. But that, you can also do something in the next moment or the next day that is anti-racist. So I also like that there's some fluidity to those. So what I don't like about this so far, and again, I'm not super far into it yet, but one, I don't like that Kendi has already insulted W.E.B. Du Bois, who is actually on my bookshelf, my pragmatism bookshelf right here, The Souls of Black Folk, and this is in fact the work that he insulted and called it racist. Because Du Bois has some assimilationist views, and I understand why Kendi thinks that assimilationist views are racist, but I also think that it's very easy to look back at a work from 100+ years ago. So Kendi's book was published in 2019, and this book, I believe, was published in 1903. Yeah, 1903, that's right. So I just think it's easy and also kind of intellectually lazy, if we're being honest, to look back at a work that was published 100+ years ago and say, hey, that does not measure up to my contemporary standard for this thing in terms of racism or anti-racism. So I did not appreciate the dig at W.E.B. Du Bois, so that's number one. The other thing is that, again, I'm listening to this on audiobook, and Kendi narrates it himself, and I'm not sure what sort of preparation, if any, he made to narrate this audiobook, but it kind of sounds to me like he took voice acting lessons from William Shatner, because that is who he reminds me of in narrating this. Like, he just does not talk like a normal human would read a book. It sounds like this. It sounds like anti-racism means to do this. Racism means to do this. And it's almost like he's trying to emphasize every single word in the sentence, or most of the words in the sentence, and it's kind of driving me crazy so far. And this does not really bode well because, again, I'm only about an hour and 45 minutes into this audiobook, and it's almost 11 hours long. So we'll see if I can make it all the way through the audiobook with him reading the book like William Shatner. So yeah, those are my thoughts about this book so far. More to come. And then I'm also still reading Eddie S. Glaude Jr.'s Begin Again, James Baldwin's America and Its Urgent Lessons for Our Own. I have about 80 or so pages left in this, and I'm enjoying it. I find it a compelling read so far, and basically Glaude traces some about Baldwin's personal history. So he starts around the publication of The Fire Next Time, and then he kind of works his way forward. And then at the end of almost every chapter, he kind of ties what Baldwin was thinking about and working on at that particular time period back to the present moment in which we currently find ourselves with Trump's America. So yeah, like I said, I'm continuing to like this and find it to be a compelling and pretty quick read. So I imagine that I will probably finish this up tomorrow. And I will give a fuller review of it next week. So yeah, those are the books that I have either finished this week or I'm currently reading. If you have thoughts about any of these, please feel free to let me know that down in the comments below. I hope that you are doing good reading whatever you're reading. I hope y'all are staying healthy and well. And until next time, would it kill you to call you mother?